Hello again, everyone. We're still doing our Carrie's Camp Road series. And today we are at what used to be called Bethany Church. Today it's called Refreshing Fountain. As the church was sold a few years ago, and that is the new name that it's undertaken. But forever before then it was called Bethany. Before we go inside, Mr. Jones is waiting for us, and he's going to tell us a lot about his experiences and also share with you the beauty of the inside of the stained glass windows and who donated them, and maybe talk a little bit about the history of the church. So last time we did the story about the store. Inside we had the day books that were about customers that would come in every day and had the date written down. And I actually have the one here from 100 years ago tomorrow. So today is December the 8th. So December the 9th tomorrow, which would have been 1923, there's just some names in here that would be local people that would be still local names today, like Wooden, Bowden, Brittingham, Williams, and that's how we sort of know who to ask about, like who used to live where and who was related to who. And there's one person that lived right down here on the right, not maybe 1,000 feet. His name was John Selby, and he was Andrew Selby's brother, and he is in the store or in the ledger almost every other day if you look at these ledgers. And one interesting thing to note about John Selby was, and I've had several people verify this, was that if you had a wart or something on your body, John Selby would pray this wart and it would leave your body. So I don't know if anybody wants to Google that, look up the history of that kind of thing, but I mean, I remember my wife had someone pray for wart to leave her body one time, and it did. So just to let you know that that's been going on for a while, and you know, just something a little different you might not hear every day. So also across the street was where John English, when I was a boy, grew up, or he didn't grow up there, but he had a shop right here, and it's right here behind us, and he would do construction and heavy construction on like logging equipment, or if you had a tractor needed working on. And it's right there where those trees are, right beyond that. And he still owns it. But actually, his grandfather, Stansbury English, and his wife's name was Salary. Yeah, I pronounced that right. It's not celery, but it sounds like it. It's Salary. And they lived there, and I think they had a house burned down, and they rebuilt it. And then years later, John and his wife moved in there. And but he actually had a blacksmith shop where he would do repairs and make wagon wheels. And of course, you know, they were talking about the days before cars, automobiles, and he would just do about anything like that. And his son Preston English, so a lot of people probably remember him, but he was very talented with hands-on kinds of things as well. So, and I just wanted to mention a few people before we went inside. Also, Wanda and Bill West and Harry West would live right up here on the right, and I think you're going to see their names, these people's names, as they purchased windows and dedicated it. You know, it was dedicated in their name because they made a donation to the church for the windows. So come on in, and Kendall's waiting for us, and we're going to do our best to try to tell you about the history of this building that's been here, according to the cornerstone, since 1913. Now that fountain you're looking at right now was not there at the time. This was all built in the last probably 25 years. But this original structure of the church is the same. Also, we've got Don Ward's here with us today. Also, if anyone remembers Don from our previous videos, and Matt is he's our cameraman as well. Again. So come on up here, Matt, and Kendall's waiting for us, and Don's waiting for us, and we got a lot of interesting things to talk about.
I I'm Kendell Jones, and I was born near this church in 1926, and this church was dedicated in 1915, so it was only 11 years old when I was born, so it was part of my life. As a small community, your life was centered around the country store and the country school and the country church, which was your religious life as well as your social life. This church had an earlier beginning as Jones's Church, which was 2 miles south of here, and
you can get a picture of that? We got some pictures.
Jones's Church was built in 1857, and it was remodeled in 1897 with that little bit of gingerbread at the top and a colored glass, not stained glass like we have here, but colored glass windows. And but prior to that, going back even further, the congregation had met at Jones's School, which was started about 1840. I always am kind of pleased to think that the very first school laws in Delaware were 1829, and to think that 11 years later, some of my ancestors had started this school, and so that was 1840. We do have records as far as 1850, which showed Jones Church, so that had to be where they were meeting. So the Jones Church was 1857, and some years ago I was up at Barrett Chapel, and I found the conference minutes from 1914, and I'm going to read that little bit. Whitesville Charge, for many years in a state of transition, takes another new department. A majority of the members at Jones Church decided among themselves that the center of population was at Lou's Crossroads, about 2 miles distant. And as the moving of the church could not be agreed upon unanimously, they further decided, without asking official advice, to build a church at the latter place. Society has been recognized and accepted as a part of Whitesville Circuit, and the dedication of the church, costing about $5,000, will probably place in June. And I also did find a record of the association. Those names are also listed here. The trustees for the new church, if you could just get those names. Some of them are still familiar, some do not have people in the district anymore. But then further at Barrett Chapel, I find 1915 in Whitesville, Delaware, J.A. Buxton, preacher. At Lou's Crossroads, Whitesville Charge, F.J. Cochran, pastor. A well-planned and attractive frame church has been erected. It was completed for dedication June the 14th, 1914. Reverend H.S. Dulaney and the writer assisted the pastor. The day closed with a spirit of triumph. The trustees did not have to assume $1, and the first day of July, the entire debt was paid in cash. Total cost about $6,500. Signed by George P. Jones, District Superintendent. I had an uncle, Russell Jones, who was about 12 years old at the time of this dedication, and I asked him if he remembered this dedication of the church, And he said he certainly did. And he said that there was a full week of evening services and there were crowds here. And he said 2 ladies from Philadelphia came in, and he described it as a big touring car, and they furnished the music for that week. These 2 ladies found a place to stay in Frankfurt where there was indoor plumbing. Shall we go on in the church? Was
That's
there
fine.
anything else I
But
was to mention here?
Could you mention the part about, didn't they run out of money a little bit and then the wine?
Now,
Didn't they run out of money in the Wanamaker? Joe, do you want to explain that a little bit?
we're never sure, and I can never prove anything about the donation of John Wanamaker to this church, but obviously he made some contribution. I tried to contact his biographer some years ago, but he didn't help me at all. But obviously the name Bethany was from his church in Philadelphia at the time. We do know a connection at the time. Of course, he had built this large store in Philadelphia, which was an entire block and like 8 stories high, I believe. And many young people went to the city to work there. And my mother was one of those. She was a Stella Taylor. And I never knew of that until I think I was about 11 years old. A couple aunts took me to Philadelphia to see this Wanamaker store decorated for Christmas and to hear a concert by the organ, which was supposed to be the largest in the world at the time. So as I'm telling my mother about it, she says, "Oh, I worked there." I'd never heard that. I assumed this was about 1900. And she had an older sister living in Philadelphia who was married, and she had a place to stay. But as you read about John Wanamaker, he employed very many young people in this store. And I read that the ones that were aged from 14 and 15 were required by state law to attend school one morning and one afternoon each week. He had a children's camp and did other things. He was quite a philosopher and a philanthropist, because so obviously he did make some contribution here, but there's never been any proof that anyone can tell for sure. But have a church like this, and with the beautiful windows that it does have, it certainly had to have some help with it, no indebtedness at the time of dedication. The windows are outstanding. I'm kind of familiar with them because I did some research on the windows at Centenary Methodist Church in Laurel a few years ago. And they have beautiful windows like these, and some of theirs in Laurel are signed William Reith, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Now, none of the windows here at Bethany are signed, but I think there's a reason for that. William Reith was a German fellow who came to this country and established a business in Philadelphia in the 1870s. And he had a stained glass window factory, and he was very popular. And he did the ones for an earlier church in Laurel in 1895. So when they built a new church in 1812, certainly they called Reith to do the special windows there. Some of the 1895 windows are also in that building. But he was considered a special artist, and he was in competition with Louis Tiffany at the time. The windows here are sometimes the very same designs as the one at Centenary Church, which was 1912. He was known for his fine glass work and of course, at that time it was popular to have stained glass windows in your home. So that was part of his business. He did those windows in Laurel, and like I say, they are signed 1912. These windows were done 1913, 1915, and none of them are signed. And I think that's because William Reith died in 1914. His daughter and her husband continued the business, I think, until 1921. So they were probably done by that factory and using his designs, but he was not present maybe when they were done.
Okay. So want to head into church now?
Mm-hmm. Did you get a picture?
Yep, we got a picture of what the loft looked like in the original church when it was first built, unless there was something else you wanted to say about it. Oh, the gas lights, maybe you want to mention that.
As we entered the church, I do have this picture from the 1940s of the interior. The beautiful ceiling is still intact, and then you can see what I remember as gas fixtures. To the left was the choir loft with a piano, and there was a brass rail with a velvet curtain around it. In the center of the big circle is really a stained glass window that was donated by Jen and Clarence Truitt, and the clock was there. The land for the church was donated by Sarah Harrison, and the lumber for the church was donated by Hester Short, and her home is directly across the street from the church. As we go inside, if you can see the pressed tin ceiling was a popular building material from like the 1900s or so, and this is still a very outstanding bit of work. The lights that you see now have been installed at some earlier time. All of the furniture, the woodwork is oak. I do know that my father, as a young married man, worked as a carpenter here. No record of who the contractor was or what was done. But, he just passed a push-up door to the Sunday school room, and that could be, and when I was a kid, that would be raised, and you could have that open to the sanctuary. There were two stoves. You can still see we still have two chimneys, and there were two large stoves that heated the place at the time of my youth. I don't remember using these gas lights too much, except that I do recall that they made a hissing noise. I don't know why, but that's what I remember about them. We always had a special evening service at Christmas time, and I know that they were used at that time. The windows are just unusual for a church in the country, such small congregation, and most of the stories, of course, most of the windows tell the stories from the Bible, and that series was donated by Minas and Amelia Lingo. I assume they must have been the parents of Mr. Will Lingo, who was an active Sunday school teacher here at the time. I do not remember those people. I'm going to try to get that window up there behind the bandstand. You can delete stuff, can't you?
Oh, we could stop it, or we could let it go. We're fine. We're just walking around trying to get a picture of all the windows and who donated them, and if there's anybody that ties into, you know, a family that people would know about now.
It's just that I know who gave these, and I
Yeah.
wondered if you could. This door to the outside, as far as I remember, never had steps, and that's quite a steep drop there. It would be opened in the summertime for air circulation, but I never remember any steps to the outside. This window in the choir loft was donated by Harry Lewis and his brother Granville Lewis. Harry Lewis was a longtime school teacher, was a teacher here at the Lewis Crossroads School, lived just down the road in his later years with his sister Wanda. Speaking of Reef's works with the windows, that jewel is sort of his trademark. They were about 2 inches of colored glass, and they were faceted, you know, like he would a gem. And that was one of the trademarks of his windows.
Just like that. Okay.
See if you can get this window up. This window in back of the altar was presented by Jen and Clarence Truitt. He was the owner of the store for many years down here at the Crossroads. As far as I know, that is the only window that has ever been replaced. The original was blown out in a storm some years ago.
I'm just here because there's a step.
Yeah.
Take your time.
That was it.
So, Mr. Truitt, and if you remember from the store, that's the people who own the store that we did the video on a few months back. His wife, Jenny, ended up passing, and then his daughter, Jeanette, I think ran the store with him, so.
This one over here. Of course, one of the greatest ones, this is not to be recorded.
You better hit pause. Hold it.